The Ghar Wapasi or conversion episodes are once again upon us. Among the concerns with conversion and reconversions, laws and statutes, here are some questions worth asking. Let us begin with the most obvious. What is conversion, and is it all right for a person to convert? Ideally, a conversion would mean an individual finding solace or truth in a faith other than his or her present religion, and then choosing to follow that other faith. Such an expression of change may entail worship or public display of such belief. Now, there is absolutely nothing wrong when a person chooses to follow another faith. The second question then: does the state have any business in making any laws that would monitor the change of faith in a person? The simple answer is patently not. It cannot be the state's business to determine what I choose to follow, how I choose to follow, and when and how I choose to change my faith. It is something that no one other than perhaps those closest to me have any right to ask of me. It is an individual's right, and that is where it stands. But the crucial third question: why does conversion become a public policy or legal issue when it is a matter of individual choice? Well, it becomes a policy problem because the freedom to practice one's own faith in India is also linked with the freedom to propagate one's faith. Now, this is an interesting extension to the idea of practicing what you believe. It may be asked, why should freedom to practice one's faith extend to propagating one's faith? And what actually constitutes propagation? For one, propagation is not mere persuasion. Propagation, which comes from the Latin propagare, means to extend, to spread, to multiply. And incidentally, the roots of propagation and propaganda are the same. And the etymology of propaganda goes back to Gregory XV and the Congregatio Propaganda set up in 1622. But what does this detour into etymology, you may ask, have to do with propagation and practice? Well, with some Semitic faiths, the very practice of faith is inextricably tied up with extending their faith to those outside its pale, not as an act of violence or not as a destructive act, but as an act of deep faith, charity, and love. It is, after all, to save them. So, what could be a moment of personal acceptance, an epiphany, becomes the end result of an active and, in many cases, an institutional process of effecting a faith change. Not much different than Ghar Wapasi. Now, it is precisely such an institutional process where faith steps out of the private and thus becomes a vexing question of public policy, because it then does not remain a matter of private practice but of public order. A thought then: what would be the result if, for example, we could say that every individual has a right to practice his or her religion and to even propagate, but, and this is crucial, there is no institutional right to propagate religion. And here, propagate would not carry the ordinary sense of spread, but the religious sense of convert. Now, mark this difference. The moment the rights do not belong to collectives, but to individuals, these attempts of Ghar Wapasi or the battle of the next billion souls to be prosecuted by an army of evangelicals, or any desire to make a Darul Islam out of this Darul Aman, will have to cease, or at the very least invite legal attention. The institutional sites of propagation, like schools, colleges, hospices, hostels, would invite scrutiny. And those wearing any institutional beads and habits, whether it is saffron, white, or black, would necessarily be under vigilance if propagation is their stated or insidious intent. But to go back to the beginning, to convert is to cause something to change, and to accept is to have been granted the grace. Freedom of religion truly belongs to acceptance and grace. An individual accepts, a congregation converts. Conversion can never rid itself of the traces of coercion and cajolement.